A night flight from New York to Zurich, the business class cabin glowing with soft lights. A young female CEO in a white dress was complaining. "I paid $10,000 for this seat, and I'm sitting next to a single father wiping baby formula." Passengers laughed quietly. The man across from her just bowed his head, comforting his frightened young daughter. The little girl gripped her father's hand. "Daddy, the plane is shaking," he smiled. "It's okay, sweetheart, just wind." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The captain's voice shouted over the intercom. "We've lost contact with Control Tower. Are there any fighter pilots on board?" The CEO froze. The father stood up slowly, carrying a look no one would forget. Ethan Cole, 36 years old, single dad, former F-16 fighter pilot, left the service after an accident and his wife's death. Now he worked as an aviation technician, raising his 7-year-old daughter Lily alone. On this flight, he just wanted to take his daughter to Switzerland to see her aunt for heart treatment. Elena Voss, 30 years old, CEO of an investment corporation, arrogant, once stated publicly, "Poor people should stay on the ground, not in the clouds." Flying to Zurich to sign a new aviation contract. When she saw Ethan and Lily sitting beside her, she was irritated. "This isn't a place for children." Ethan spoke gently. "My daughter will be good. We just want a peaceful flight." Elena glanced at his shirt stained with oil, laughing mockingly. "You're an airport technician. Probably don't understand what this ticket costs." Lily said innocently, "Daddy flies planes really well." Elena waved her hand dismissively. "Anyone's good at video game flying." Ethan just smiled. He'd heard worse things during his years at war. The flight attendant offered wine. Elena laughed. "Give me the most expensive one so I can forget I'm sitting next to someone who wipes airplane wings." Ethan said quietly, "People who wipe wings sometimes understand the sky better than people who fly for money." She turned away, embarrassed but hiding it with laughter. But Ethan's story was far deeper than Elena could have imagined from her privileged perspective. 4 years ago, he'd been Lieutenant Ethan Cole, call sign Falcon-Six, one of the most decorated fighter pilots in his squadron. He'd flown over 200 combat missions, air superiority, close air support, search and rescue, the kind of missions that made other pilots nervous just hearing the briefing. His wife Sarah had been a civilian flight instructor. They'd met at an air show, married within a year, had Lily 2 years later. Life had been perfect. Flying during the day, coming home to his family at night, the dream, until Operation Desert Shield, a rescue mission gone wrong, engine failure at 12,000 feet. His wingman, Captain James Voss, Elena's father, had been hit by ground fire. Ethan had stayed with him, talked him through emergency procedures, guided him toward friendly territory despite his own aircraft losing hydraulics. They'd both ejected at the last possible second. James had landed in friendly territory, survived with minor injuries. Ethan had landed hard, shattered his left leg in 3 places, damaged his spine, 6 months of recovery, medical discharge, the end of his flying career. And while he was in the hospital, Sarah had died in a car accident, driving home from visiting him, a drunk driver. Instant. She'd never even seen it coming. So Ethan had been left with a shattered body, a dead wife, a traumatized daughter, and no career. He'd moved them to a small apartment, taken the only aviation job he could get that didn't require a pilot's license. Aircraft maintenance technician. It paid enough to survive. Barely. But it kept him close to planes, close to the sky that had been his whole life, even if he couldn't fly anymore. And now he sat next to a CEO who thought he was nobody, who had no idea that he'd saved her father's life at the cost of his own career. The irony was almost funny, almost. The seatbelt sign illuminated, the plane started to shake. Lily hugged her father, Elena gripped her wine glass unsteadily. Ethan reassured her. "Don't worry, just turbulence." She frowned. "I don't need you to teach me." But the turbulence got worse, much worse. Lightning tore through the sky outside the windows. The plane shook violently, lights flickering on and off. Passengers gasped. A few screamed. Elena's wine spilled across her white dress, the red stain spreading like blood. Ethan looked toward the cockpit, his heart pounding like it had 4 years ago when everything went wrong. The captain's voice came through the speakers, strained, barely controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Please remain calm and keep your seatbelts fastened." Elena's face went pale. She clutched the armrests, knuckles white, trying to maintain her composure but failing. Lily pressed closer to her father. "Daddy, I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay, I promise." "How do you know?" "Because Daddy used to fly planes like this, and I know they're strong. They can handle storms." Elena overheard this, turned to look at him with something that might have been hope or might have been skepticism. "You flew commercial planes?" "Not commercial, military." Before she could respond, the plane dropped suddenly, 50 feet in an instant. Screams filled the cabin, oxygen masks deployed with a hissing sound. And then the captain's voice again, this time with unmistakable panic. "The co-pilot has passed out. We need help in the cockpit immediately. Are there any fighter pilots on board?" A passenger later recalled. The CEO went silent. Everyone looked around. Nobody moved. Then this man, the one she'd mocked, stood up like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Screaming erupted. "The co-pilot fainted!" The plane tilted slightly. The captain over the intercom. "Are there any fighter pilots on this flight?" Elena looked around in shock. No one stood up. Then Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt, speaking clearly. "I'm Lieutenant Ethan Cole, United States Air Force." A young veteran in the back shouted, "Call sign Falcon-Six, right, sir?" The entire cabin erupted. Elena was stunned. He walked into the cockpit, calmly adjusting the controls, his voice steady. "We're going to be okay. Maintain altitude at 33,000 feet. Elena stood outside, looking through the glass, seeing for the first time the real person behind that cheap uniform. Lily sat quietly in her seat, clutching the jacket her father had left before entering the cockpit. "Daddy's doing what Mommy taught him." He nodded. "Always do things for others." 20 tense minutes. Ethan executed an emergency landing at the nearest Air Force base. When the wheels touched ground, everyone applauded. Elena couldn't take her eyes off him. After stabilizing, he came out and said, "Nobody's hurt. Thank you for trusting me." Elena hesitated. I didn't trust you." He shrugged. "Nobody forced you to." She looked at the tattoo on his wrist, the wing symbol with number 401. She whispered, "You're from the Falcon-Six unit?" "Yes, the unit that rescued Voss Airlines planes, your company." Elena froze. Last year's accident, he'd been part of the rescue team, but the truth was even more complex than Elena realized yet. When Ethan had walked into that cockpit, he'd been terrified. His hands had shaken as he gripped the yoke. The last time he'd flown had been the day he'd crashed, the day he'd lost everything. The captain had looked at him with desperate hope. "Sir, I don't know if I can hold her steady. The hydraulics are failing. We're losing altitude." "Let me take it," Ethan had said, his voice steadier than he felt. He'd slid into the co-pilot seat, his hands finding the controls like greeting an old friend. Muscle memory took over. All the training, all the combat missions, all the impossible situations he'd navigated. But this was different. This wasn't a military aircraft. This was a civilian plane full of families, children, people who'd never signed up for danger, including his own daughter. The pressure was suffocating. He'd started running through emergency procedures, his mind cataloging systems, calculating fuel, planning approach vectors. The Air Force base he'd landed at, Ramstein, was where he'd been stationed for 2 years. He knew every runway, every approach, every potential hazard. "Ramstein Tower, this is commercial flight 723 declaring emergency. Request immediate clearance for landing. I'm former military, call sign Falcon-Six." There was a pause. Then a familiar voice came through. "Falcon-Six? Ethan Cole? Is that really you?" "Affirm, Tower. And I need you to clear the main runway. We're coming in hot with hydraulic failure and an unconscious co-pilot." "Copy that, Falcon-Six. Runway is yours. Emergency crews standing by." It's good to hear your voice again, brother. Ethan's eyes had gotten wet. Good to be back, Tower, even if it's not how I planned. He'd guided the plane down through the storm, fighting cross winds, compensating for the failing systems, drawing on every bit of skill and instinct he'd ever developed. When the wheels had touched the runway, smooth despite everything, the relief had been overwhelming. In the cabin, passengers had erupted in applause and tears. But Ethan had just sat there for a moment, hands still on the controls, breathing hard, processing what he'd just done. He'd flown again, after 4 years, after swearing he never would, and he'd saved them all. The captain had clapped him on the shoulder. You just saved 263 lives, Lieutenant. I don't know how to thank you. Just make sure everyone gets home safe. That's thanks enough. Now, standing in the cabin with Elena looking at him like she was seeing him for the first time, Ethan felt exposed, vulnerable. He'd spent 4 years hiding from his past, and in 20 minutes it had all come rushing back. Elena's voice was small, broken. The rescue mission last year, my father's plane, that was you? I was part of the team, yes. My father said someone stayed on the radio with him for 3 hours, talked him through landing with one engine, kept him calm, saved his life. That was you. It was my job. It was more than a job. He told me about the pilot who sacrificed his own safety to guide him down, who crashed his own plane because he'd used all his fuel circling, protecting him. You lost your career saving my father. Ethan looked away. He lived. That's what mattered. And I just mocked you, called you worthless, treated you like trash. You didn't know. I should have. I should have seen, I don't know, something, anything, that you were more than what I assumed. Lily appeared between them, taking both their hands. Daddy always says everyone has a story. You just have to listen. A flight attendant later said, when he came out of that cockpit, everyone stood, but he just went to his daughter and held her. Like saving all those lives was just another Tuesday. 1 week later, the news Falcon-Six pilot hidden in plain sight saves civilian aircraft went viral. Papers published photos of Ethan carrying Lily off the plane, with Elena standing behind like an assistant. The Voss Airlines board demanded to know his identity. Elena reported, he once saved my father's squadron. We owe him a life. First twist. A leaked video showed Elena's father's plane crash from years ago. The pilot, Falcon-Six, was Ethan. He'd risked everything to dive down and rescue, was severely injured, then left the military. Elena sat in the boardroom, tears falling. The man who saved my father is the man I humiliated. She went to his home, an old apartment building. Lily was drawing pictures of airplanes. My daddy is a superhero, Lily said. Elena placed her hand on her chest, choking up. Yes, he is, sweetheart. She offered Ethan the position of flight safety advisor for Voss Airlines. He refused. I just want peace for my daughter, she persisted. But people like you make the world safer. Second twist. During a test flight of the new Falcon-X aircraft, a system malfunction occurred. Elena was trapped on the prototype plane during testing. Ethan happened to be at the runway because he was giving Lily a tour. He heard the announcement, Falcon-X aircraft not responding. He ran into the control tower, shouted into the microphone, This is Falcon-Six, I'm providing guidance. The entire team heard his voice, followed his commands. The plane landed safely. When the door opened, Elena cried, gripping his hand. Fate called and you still answered. He smiled. The sky still needs people who keep their promises. But the moment was more complex than it appeared from the outside. When Elena had stepped off that test aircraft, shaking and crying, the full weight of everything hit her at once. She'd nearly died, and the man she'd mocked had saved her. Again. Why? She asked him as they stood on the tarmac, emergency vehicles all around them. Why do you keep saving me, my father, my company, after how I treated you? Ethan looked at her with those calm eyes that had seen too much. Because that's what we do, fighter pilots. We protect people, even people who don't see us, even people who think we're worthless. That's the job. But you're not a fighter pilot anymore. Yes, I am. I'll always be. That doesn't go away just because I'm not flying. It's who I am. Elena broke down completely. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry for everything, for how I treated you, for not seeing you, for being so blind and arrogant and cruel. You didn't know my story. That's not an excuse. I should treat everyone with respect, regardless of their story. That's just being a decent human being. And I wasn't. I was terrible. Lily approached, having been watching from a safe distance. She took Elena's hand. It's okay. Daddy says everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after. Elena looked at this 7-year-old girl, so wise and kind despite having lost her mother, despite living with limited means, despite everything she'd been through. Your daddy is right. And I want to do better. I want to make this right. Over the following days, Elena did more than just offer Ethan a job. She launched a complete review of how Voss Airlines treated veterans, how they hired, how they valued people. She discovered dozens of former military personnel working in low-level positions despite having skills and experience that far exceeded their roles. Aircraft mechanics who'd been fighter pilots, security guards who'd been special forces, janitors who'd been engineers, all of them invisible, all of them undervalued, all of them like Ethan. She called an emergency board meeting. We're changing everything. Every veteran in this company gets a skills assessment. We're creating a veterans transition program. We're partnering with military bases to recruit retiring service members. And we're making Ethan Cole our Director of Flight Safety and Veterans Affairs. The board had resisted. He's not qualified. He doesn't have an MBA. He hasn't run a department. He's saved more lives than everyone in this room combined. He's qualified. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're the ones who aren't qualified. She'd won the argument, not with logic, but with passion, with the unshakable certainty that this was right. When she'd told Ethan he'd been skeptical. I don't know how to run a department. I'm a pilot, was a pilot. You'll learn. And more importantly, you'll bring something this company has been missing. Integrity, honor, a real understanding of what service means. What about Lily? I can't work 80-hour weeks. She needs me. Then don't. We'll build the role around your life, not the other way around. Family first, always. Ethan had looked at her for a long moment. You've really changed, haven't you? You changed me. You and Lily. You showed me what I'd become, what I'd lost, and I don't want to be that person anymore. 3 months after the emergency landing, Voss Airlines held a press conference. Elena stood at the podium with Ethan beside her, Lily in the front row. Today we're announcing a new initiative, the Falcon-Six program, named after the call sign of the man who saved my father, saved me, and saved everyone on Flight 723. This program will ensure that every veteran who wants to continue serving in aviation has a path to do so. The room erupted in applause. Ethan stepped to the microphone, uncomfortable with the attention but willing to endure it for a good cause. I didn't save anyone for recognition. I did it because it's what we're trained to do. Fighter pilots protect people. That's the mission, whether we're in the cockpit or on the ground. And I'm honored to help make sure other veterans have the chance to continue that mission. After the press conference, as they walked through the airport toward the parking lot, Lily between them holding both their hands, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, purpose, connection. She looked at Ethan. Thank you for everything. Thank me by treating the next person you meet with respect. Before you know their story, that's all the thanks I need. A journalist reported, when the CEO announced the program, she was crying. The former pilot stood beside her, calm as always, and every veteran in that room stood and saluted. 3 months later, Ethan became the director of flight safety training at Voss Airlines. Elena changed all policies for veteran and technical worker treatment. At an aviation conference, Elena spoke. On that fateful day, I asked the wrong question. I asked who is a pilot, but I should have asked who knows how to sacrifice. Lily came to visit her father at the airport, sat in the simulator pilot seat. Elena said to the little girl, You showed the world what an amazing father looks like. I just want everyone to know Daddy still flies, just with his heart. Symbol of rebirth. On the nose of the newly launched Falcon-Six aircraft, Elena had these words engraved, "Fly for those we love." That afternoon, all three of them watched the sunset through the airport window, orange light covering their faces, peaceful and warm. But the real changes went deeper than press conferences and new programs. Ethan's office became a gathering place for veterans transitioning to civilian life. Every day, former service members would stop by, some just to talk, some seeking advice, some needing help navigating the complex world of corporate employment after years of military structure. He never turned anyone away. His door was always open. And slowly, word spread through the veteran community. If you need help, go see Falcon-Six at Voss Airlines. He'll take care of you. Elena often found him there late at night, talking to a former airman about job applications, or helping a retired mechanic update her resume, or just listening to a combat veteran who needed someone to understand the things he couldn't tell his family. "You should go home," she'd say. "Lily needs you. She's with her aunt tonight. These people need me now. You can't save everyone, Ethan. Maybe not, but I can try." She'd started staying late too, learning from him, seeing how he treated people, how he listened without judgment, how he found value in everyone, regardless of their rank or role. One evening, 6 months into the program, they were reviewing applications for the new Veterans Pilot Training Initiative, a program that would give former military pilots the certifications needed to fly commercial aircraft. "This one," Ethan said, pointing to a file. "She flew helicopters in Afghanistan, 3 tours, medical discharge after a crash. She thinks her flying days are over." "Do you think she can do it?" "I know she can, because I did." Elena looked at him. "You're flying again?" He smiled slightly. "Started simulator training last month. Baby steps. But yeah, I think I might get back in the cockpit someday, for real." "What changed?" "You did. You showed me that our past doesn't have to define our future. That falling doesn't mean you can't get back up. I was hiding from flying, from life, from everything. And you called me out on it, not with words. Just by being brave enough to change yourself." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "I'm not brave. You're the brave one. We're both brave, just in different ways. And together, I think we're building something that matters." They'd launched the pilot retraining program with 20 veterans. Within a year, all 20 were employed, flying commercial routes, cargo planes, private charters, living their dream again. And Ethan had gotten his commercial pilot's license, passed every test, logged the required hours, and now he flew part-time for Voss Airlines while still running the veterans program. The first time he'd taken Lily up in a small plane, she'd squealed with delight. "Daddy, we're flying, really flying." "Yeah, baby girl, we really are." Elena had been there at the hangar when they'd landed, watching father and daughter climb out of the cockpit, both grinning from ear to ear. "How was it?" she'd asked. "Perfect," Ethan had said. "Absolutely perfect. From this day forward, I choose to see the hero in every person, the story behind every face, the value in every soul. I will live with respect." 1 year later, Ethan launched the Sky for Kids program, teaching orphans and veterans' children to fly model aircraft. Elena sponsored all costs. Lily was the youngest honorary pilot. At the opening ceremony, Elena spoke. "People often ask why a CEO learned to fly. The answer is because I met someone who knows how to fly even without wings." Ethan responded, "Nobody stays down forever. Even the most scorned person can lift others up if they still believe in kindness." Final scene. Lily ran onto the tarmac, holding a model plane up to the sky. "Daddy, the sky is calling." Ethan smiled. "Then let's answer, sweetheart." The camera zoomed out, sunset enveloping the father and daughter and Elena watching. Wind blowing the Falcon-Six flag, symbol of honor, forgiveness, and faith. But the story continued beyond that perfect moment. 2 years after that first emergency landing, Voss Airlines had become the leading employer of military veterans in the aviation industry. Over 300 former service members had found careers there, from pilots to mechanics to logistics to management. The Falcon-Six program had expanded to 12 other airlines. Ethan traveled the country, speaking at military bases, helping service members plan their transition, showing them that life after the uniform could be just as meaningful as life in it. Elena had stepped back from some of her CEO duties, spending more time on the program she'd built with Ethan. She discovered that making money was easy, making a difference was hard, and infinitely more rewarding. She'd also discovered something else. She was in love with Ethan. It had happened slowly, through late nights working together, through watching him with Lily, through seeing his patience, his kindness, his unwavering integrity in a world that often rewarded the opposite. She told him one evening, terrified of his response, "I know this is complicated. I know I was terrible to you. I know I don't deserve anything really, but I love you, and I needed you to know." Ethan had looked at her with those calm eyes. "I know. You know, I've known for a while. Lily told me. She's very perceptive. And I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday. But right now, I'm still healing. Still figuring out who I am after everything. And I need to do that before I can be with someone." Elena had nodded, heartbroken but understanding. "I can wait, however long it takes." "You shouldn't have to wait for anyone." "But I want to, because you're worth waiting for." They'd left it there, not together but not apart, building something between friendship and romance, taking it day by day. 3 years after that first flight, Ethan piloted the inaugural flight of the new Falcon-Six aircraft, a state-of-the-art plane designed with input from veteran pilots, with Elena in the co-pilot seat, having earned her license through intensive training, and Lily in the cabin, wearing a junior pilot's wings. As they took off, climbing into a perfect blue sky, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years. Complete peace. He'd fallen from the sky once, lost everything, rebuilt from nothing. And now he was here, flying again, surrounded by people he loved, doing work that mattered. The radio crackled. "Falcon-Six, this is Tower. Beautiful takeoff. Welcome home." Ethan smiled, keying the mic. "Good to be home, Tower. Good to be home." Below them, the world spread out in all its complexity and beauty, and above them, endless sky. Ethan looked at Elena, who was watching the instruments with fierce concentration, at Lily, who was sketching the clouds they flew through, at the path ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. And he thought, this is what it means to fly, not the altitude or the speed or the machinery, but the courage to rise after falling, the grace to forgive, the strength to trust again, the wisdom to see value in everyone, the love that lifts us higher than any aircraft ever could. That's flight. That's freedom. That's home. "Daddy," Lily called from the cabin. "Are we flying high enough?" Ethan grinned. "Not yet, baby girl, but we're getting there." And as the Falcon-Six climbed into the afternoon sun, carrying its cargo of hope and second chances and hard-won redemption, Ethan Cole finally understood what his old commander had told him years ago. You're not a pilot because you fly planes. You're a pilot because you refuse to let gravity win. No matter how many times you fall, you get back up. That's what makes you one of us. He'd fallen. He'd gotten back up. And now he was soaring. If you believe real courage is quiet and respect is louder than pride, share this story and subscribe to my stories. We tell moments that remind the world how kindness and fate can still lift us higher than any flight.